Here's the critical, often deal-breaking truth about financing a custom home. Typically, you're gonna have to have 20 to 25% of the total project value to put down. Now, a lot of times people get the impression then, man, my custom build is dead in the water before it even got started. But we're gonna talk through how to finance a custom home and leverage an asset that you probably already have a lot of equity in, so you have that 25% down. Building a custom home in Colorado isn't just about floor plans. It's about creating the lifestyle you've always pictured. We break down the process, the choices, and the real costs so you can build with confidence. I'm Chris Beresford, and this is Colorado Custom Homes. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if it is your first time. Hey, I want to say, I know it's been a little while since we've done some videos. So hey, life gets busy, work gets busy, things change around. But bottom line, I want to get back to helping you out with kind of fulfilling that custom home dream if that's what you want to do. I'm Chris Beresford. I'm here in the northern El Paso County area in Colorado. And like I said, today we are talking about financing your custom home in 2026. The down payment or the equity requirement to build a luxury custom home is 100%, most definitely the biggest deal breaker for most people. So as I kind of mentioned earlier, 20 to 25% is typically the amount of down payment or equity you have to have of the total project value. So if you are going to build a $2 million custom home, that means you have to have about $500,000 or up to $500,000 as a down payment or equity. So a lot of people think, man, I don't have $500,000 in the bank. Most people don't. That's just cash available to use, because you got to remember, the lender, they want to mitigate their risk. So they're going to finance 75 to 80% of the build typically. So that other portion, that other 20 to 25%, they're going to expect you to have that money as kind of skin in the game. But it doesn't have to be only just cash in the bank. It can be a combination of cash in the bank or land equity. So a lot of people that are looking to build a custom home, they've already bought a piece of land. They have a raw piece of land like this. They have this dream that they want to build a custom home on it. So if you've bought that piece of land maybe a while back or maybe recently and you paid cash for it, that total value of that land, the bank will typically use as equity into the total build. So if you have a $400,000 property that you own cash, the bank is going to count that as equity towards the overall project. Now let's say, hey, I didn't buy my land cash, but even most land deals, like you might have put 50% down on it, so that could be your equity. And then it's also possible that maybe if you bought it a long time ago, maybe 5 or even 10 years ago, but you financed almost all of it and somehow you've been able to keep the financing going, so you don't have a lot of, from when you bought it, you don't have a lot of equity difference. From that standpoint, that value of that land is probably appraised a good bit as well. So whatever that appraised value delta is, anything that's equity on that land can count towards your total down payment for your build. So just remember that it doesn't have to be only cash in the bank for that 20 to 25% down. It could be land equity, and it could also be some other things that aren't going to be as big of a number. Like if you've already paid to get your house design done and you already have the plans, sometimes a lender will count that as equity, but land is 100% definitely the biggest potential equity and down payment asset that you may not be thinking of whenever you go to draw that construction loan for your build. Now let's talk about that. That's a super important part too, is to make sure that you choose the right construction loan. And let's talk about that right now. Now, like I mentioned, I know it's been quite a while since we did some of these videos, and I just personally want to say thank you to all the people that definitely reached out, had a ton of comments on those videos that we used to do, got to help out a lot of people with their custom home builds, and I know I didn't get to everybody, so I do apologize for that, but like I said, I'm just really looking forward to getting back into it and helping you guys out. All right, so this first loan type that we're going to talk about, it's called a one-time close. So this is a little bit different than kind of what the historical norm was whenever you build a custom home with your construction loan. So the basics of a one-time close, and I'm just going to kind of walk through this to kind of explain what it is and some of the pros and cons. So a one-time construction loan is where you are going to go to the bank and you are going to get this construction loan and permanent loan all in one. So what's going to happen is whenever you get your build plans all done, we're going to talk about some of that stuff too, what you have to do to get ready to get your loan. But when you get your loan from the lender, it's going to be a construction loan for the build period of the home. So it's going to be interest-only payments, just paying on how much you've drawn off of that construction loan. And that's going to get you through the build process of your house. And then once you get done with the build and the house is officially all done, you have your certificate of occupancy, then the lender's actually going to automatically transition you into a permanent loan. So that's like your 30-year fixed loan that we all kind of think about whenever we think about buying a house. Now, some of the benefits of this, probably one of the biggest benefit, honestly, is you're only paying closing costs one time. So if you do another type of loan, you might pay closing costs multiple times throughout the process. But with the one-time close, you're going to pay all of your closing costs up front. So you're going to pay the closing costs of the lender and all that stuff is upfront, part of that original loan origination. And then whenever it transfers to permanent financing, you don't have additional closing costs that you have to pay. Now, there might be some fees that the title company might require, things like that to get the deed recorded. But as far as like the loan closing cost, you're only going to pay those one time and it's going to be upfront. So that's really the biggest cost savings that you have with this one-time close. Now, the other thing that's a variable that 9 times out of 10, I would say works out to be in your favor is the fact that you're going to lock your permanent interest rate at the very beginning. And just with kind of the interest rate environment that we've been in, that's a pretty good thing that you're going to lock the rate today so you don't have to worry about, man, if rates are 6% right now, something happens and now next year when you're getting ready to go to permanent financing, they're at 7.5%. Well, we all know 1.5% delta on a 7-figure loan or whatever it is can make a huge difference to you. So locking your rate now gives you that assurance that you know what your payment's going to be whenever you come out the backside and you're actually going into your permanent financing. And some people might be thinking, well, what if rates are lower a year from now? Most lenders, again, this is lender dependent. So most lenders will let you float the rate down or maybe even spend a little bit to kind of buy that rate down. Maybe they have a fee associated with it if the rate is a lot lower whenever you get to the permanent financing time 12 to 18 months from now. So that's the basics of a one-time close. Again, it's a normal construction loan, interest only at the beginning, but then it automatically is going to transition into permanent 30-year fixed financing whenever your house is done. All right, so that was the one-time close. Now let's talk about a two-time close construction loan. So this is, like I said, this kind of used to be the norm. Now it's not as normal anymore, but you will still see it. So I just want to explain it to you in case you're out there kind of shopping lenders, you're chatting with some folks, and you want to just understand what my different options are with my construction loan. So with the two-time close, you can probably kind of figure out what this one is. You're closing twice. You are literally getting two separate loans. So you're going to get a construction loan at the beginning. So again, we're going to talk through some of the things you have to be ready for that. But once you have all those things, you're going to get a construction loan. You're going to go to the bank, they're going to look at the plans, and they're going to issue this essentially a line of credit is really what it is to build the house. And you're going to take draws off of that as you have to pay contractors or as your builder has to pay his trades. You're going to take draws off of that. That balance of that line of credit essentially is going to increase, and you're making interest-only payments on that loan until the house is done. So that portion of it is just like that first period in the one-time close. But here's the difference. Once your house is done, you get your certificate of occupancy, the home's all ready to go. Now you have to transition to permanent financing and pay off your construction loan. But it's actually a separate loan that you're getting. So your lender is going to issue you a second separate loan that is going to be a 30-year fixed interest type of loan, maybe 20-year, whatever you decide to do. But it's going to be what we call permanent financing. So at that point, you're going to do another closing. You're going to pay additional closing costs, lender fees, et cetera, et cetera. And then the lender is going to pay off your construction loan. And now you have this new loan that is your permanent financing. So again, people ask, well, gosh, why the heck would I do this anymore if I could just do a one-time close? Honestly, most times you're just going to do a one-time close. In this lending environment, that's what we see the most of. It's what I've personally done on the homes that I've built for myself. So it's just kind of a little bit more the norm than what the two-time close is. But in some areas, you might be kind of limited on what lender options you have. So maybe you do have to go with, maybe you only have two options in your area that are going to do a construction loan, and all they offer is a two-time close. So you might kind of be stuck in that environment a little bit. Or maybe you have a lot of different lending options in your area, but maybe just because of the project you're doing, maybe there's some specifics with it that due to risk or other factors, maybe some lenders just like, gosh, I can't do this. Or maybe they say, hey, we need more money down than what you're able to do. So you're kind of forced to go with lender A. Maybe they have the process still in place where they just do two-time closes, two separate loans, a construction loan, and then permanent financing. So you might see it out there. It's not as common as it used to be for sure, but just kind of want to explain that a little bit, just so you know if you do come across the two separate loan, two closings, that you know exactly what it is. Now, I mentioned just real briefly about kind of having some things ready to go so you're prepared to get the loan. So it's not just your situation that the lender's going to look at, like your credit score. Of course, they're looking at all that stuff too, but they're also going to require you to give them a little bit more information, and they're going to want to see a couple extra things you may not be thinking about. One of them is that they want to make sure that you're choosing a builder that has a historical track record of finishing, completing custom homes, especially if it's a luxury custom home, that they complete the project and the appraisals match up. Because whenever you get the loan at the very beginning, you don't have a house for the lender to loan on, right? So they're going to do what's called a paper appraisal. So they're going to look at your blueprints and they're going to say, okay, based on what these blueprints say, here's what we predict the value of the house will be when it's all done. And like I said, that's all the appraiser. They take care of all that stuff. But the lender wants to make sure that who you are picking as a builder has a track record of completing homes that end up being at the appraised value. I've seen it happen a few times where, the paper appraisal, maybe it says like 1.5 million. But then when the home got done, well, gosh, now the appraiser came back and they looked at the finishes, they looked at the quality of work, and they're like, that's actually not really 1.5, it was more like 1.3. Lenders don't like to see that, right? They're trying to mitigate their risk. So the lender often will want to just kind of, if they don't know the builder off the top of their head, or if they have a good name in the area, they're probably going to do their own due diligence to kind of look at that builder's track record. If they're a newer builder, they might just kind of have some more questions for them. They might want just more information from them, but just don't be caught off guard if the lender asks you questions about who your builder is and kind of wants to see some of their track record. So that's kind of number one. The second thing, so I kind of alluded to this one just now a little bit when I mentioned blueprints. So the lender, the bank, they're also going to probably want to see a very detailed plan set. So they're going to want to see blueprints, soil reports, engineering reports, all that plan set, because that's what they're going to send to the appraiser, and that's what the appraiser is going to give that valuation off of. So they want to make sure that they know what they're loaning on. They want the detail so they can see specifically, okay, we understand exactly what this project is. We understand the fit and finishes that are going to be expected in this home. We want to know the location of it, what the lot is, if there's going to be views associated with it. They just need to have a full, clear picture so that whenever they do that appraisal, they can say, yes, confidently, we're confident in loaning you this much money based on what we think the value of the home is going to be based on the information you've given us. And it also shows them that you're working with a quality builder that has all their ducks in a row. So they have all this information and they're ready to go. And then the other thing, and this is something that a lot of folks don't think as much about, is cash reserves, or some kind of you can get to it easily, it's liquidatable, if that's a word, assets. So think 5 to 10%. So if you're building $1 million home, the bank's got to want to see that you have access to $50,000 to $100,000 extra above and beyond kind of what they've already said your down payment or your equity needs to be. Now, the reason they do this is they want to make sure that if you file for a bunch of change orders that maybe is outside the scope of the original build and the loan that they're approving, if you decide to make that decision later, that you can float that difference. So this varies a lot by builder, probably area by area too, but just don't be surprised if the builder wants to see not only your equity or your down payment percentage put into the deal, but then also they want to see some additional available cash reserves or something that you can turn to cash quickly. So you have a brokerage account or something like that, probably not retirement accounts, but just a basic brokerage account that you can cash some stuff out of if need be. It's almost kind of like just that emergency reserve that they want to make sure you have so that they can be confident, okay, if something crazy comes up and there's a lot of extra funds that are required, or you make the choice to change something and you want to add X, Y, or Z and it's going to cost $40,000, they want to make sure that that the scope still fits in the budget that they have allocated for the loan and what you might have in available cash reserve. So again, it's all about risk mitigation for the lender, but don't be surprised if the lender asks you for those three things. So more information about your builder to make sure they're a quality, reputable builder, and also a very detailed plan set so they have all the information to give a good appraisal for the value. And then the last thing is just they may want to see some cash reserves, and it can be a pretty big number because they want to have the confidence that their risk is mitigated if you make changes or changes are required throughout the build. Now, financing is often what kills your custom home dream, but knowing how to leverage the equity you have in your land and knowing exactly what lenders are looking for is often the key to success. Now, having done this a time or two, I've got some pretty good insights on exactly what lenders are looking for and different ways that you can finance a custom home build for a lot of different situations. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and especially if you're here in the Colorado Springs and Pikes Peak region.